Hey everyone, what is up and welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lifters Show. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Alastair Harte. Alastair is a pro fitness model and five-time world champion. He's a founder of Body Image Gym in Cork, and he's also a car enthusiast in his spare time. Alastair, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, man.
Adrian, thank you very much. Delighted to be on and looking forward to it, to be honest with you. I've been looking at your own journey recently as well, and you've recently just done a show as well, I see. So I'm looking forward to covering everything from fitness to whatever you think is appropriate for your listeners. So thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, we can definitely talk about the show and the aftermath actually as well down the line. Alistair, before we actually start, man, you've been on multiple podcasts. You have your own podcast as well. Share something about yourself that most people do not know.
I've lived about 5, 6, 10 lives, I think, in my nearly 43 years on this planet. I guess if we wind it all the way back to when I was about 16, that's where we can even wind it back to primary, I guess, and that's kind of probably pivotally where it went wrong. I went to primary school in quite a rural setting, and I was quite sheltered from life as such, really. And when I went to secondary school, then all hell broke loose because I was kind of free and so on. But I just didn't go to school a whole pile, and I got thrown out of the first school after the first term. I think I went to school 14 days out of the entire September to Christmas term because I was too busy floating around the town that I'd never been allowed into and so on. And then I was consequently then moved to another school. I was told I was going to go to boarding school, and I kind of I didn't want to go to boarding school, and I ended up going to a secondary school where it was actually a boarding school for girls, but any boys that wanted to boarded in houses around the village. So I went and that was in Rosscarbery. Again, that only didn't last very long, and I got kicked out before my junior cert. I didn't bother doing half my junior cert, so I've a failed junior cert. I have no formal traditional education whatsoever, and everything that I've learned to date is from consumption of audiobooks, multiple lectures. Like even this morning, I'm 3 hours into a lecture on a particular subject that I'm interested in at the moment, and that's how I've educated myself there afterwards. But so with that, when I got kicked out of school early, I was delighted because all I wanted to do was go working, and I thought it was great, at 15 to be able to go off and just earn money. Thought it was brilliant. So I went, and obviously the people I started to hang around with were a good bit older than me, and so on and so forth, and they were going out, and I was just exposed to a lot of things, I guess, that I shouldn't have been exposed to at that age. And one thing led to another, and I guess always kind of playing up to the older crowd. I got involved in drugs back in the 90s, and this would have been 1996, the mid 90s. So the drug culture in Ireland back then most certainly isn't what it's like now. You could count on one hand the amount of people that took drugs in one rural town in Ireland. Sure. And I was one of them. So that kind of got out of control because I ended up selling them as well. And
sorry to cut across you, Alistair, but at what age would you have started taking drugs? Would that be 15, 16?
15, yeah, at 15. Wow. I started, I think I probably had a smoke was the first thing that I had, and I absolutely hated it. It made me feel sick and everything, but every drug I took after that was to put me up, not down. So the drug of choice back then was ecstasy and LSD. I took a load of LSD when I was 16, and I stopped taking that because I had several really, really bad trips, because I hadn't a clue what I was taking. So you're in this alternative reality, altered state of consciousness at 16, not knowing what you're doing at all. And it was a pretty scary place. Whereas the ecstasy then was obviously, it's MDMA based, and that's actually now being used for the treatment of depression because it's a love drug, right? So I thought it was great, and so did everybody else around me. And but anyway, consequently, as I said, it was very easy to see who was taking drugs, very easy to see who was selling drugs. And I got caught when I was 17, and I was arrested and all the rest of it. And I was charged with possession with intent to supply. I went through a rehabilitation program with Arbor House in Cork when I was 17. But the papers for me actually getting charged and arrested for the sale and supply of drugs were served to me when I was 18, so I could be tried as an adult.
Wow.
And that was a really frightening experience, to be honest, to go into a courtroom knowing that you're being tried as an adult, and knowing at the time I was caught with a considerable amount of money and ecstasy. And this was 97, and you may or may not know this, maybe your listeners may not know this, but in 1995 there was a few deaths in the UK from really strong ecstasy tablets, and there was one girl in particular called Leah Betts, and she died. She took an ecstasy tablet in a club in Essex called Raquel's. It's very famous, the Essex Boys and all of that gangland stuff. That's all kind of focused in and around that as well. So ecstasy at this point now had become, the guards and the police in the UK, and it was, everybody wanted, to get rid of it because it was killing people and so on. So it was, anyone selling it consequently was bad news.
Yeah.
As I described to people, I was the kid you really didn't want your kids hanging around with, because I got the name. And
yeah.
So I went to court, and we're in and out of treatment centers for over a year and a half. And eventually I had done so much time in treatment that I was put on probation, because they'd seen that, by the reports from the treatment centers, that I was now clean, and that I had, I changed my life, and I had as well. But I kind of hermetized myself. I was working for my dad in the motor industry, staying at, coming home in the evening, staying at home, isolating myself. And my girlfriend, when I was 16, she would, come back and stay with us a couple of nights a week or whatever. She's consequently then is the mother of my children as well. And she stood by me through all of it, never took a drug in her life. And it was very strange, to get through all of that. And she always remained the same. But we moved out when we were 20, and we got our own place. We got married when we were 22. And when we'd moved out, obviously, I thought that I had a handle on things again, and we started to socialize and go out. When we started to socialize and go out, I started drinking, because I didn't really drink in my teen years. It wasn't something that bothered me too much. Like, I was just, all I wanted was drugs. And obviously to go out and socialize in my 20s, it meant drinking. And when I was when I started drinking, I couldn't handle my drink that well. Excuse me. Couldn't handle my drink that well. So the only way that I knew that I could stay drinking, because I have an obsessive stroke addictive personality, the only way I could stay drinking was if I mixed it with Coke, as in cocaine,
not your Cokes here.
Yeah. So that led down to a really slippery slope of days, which turned into weekends, which turned into weeks going missing and going on benders and stuff. We had our first son at 28 and our second at 25, and our second son at 28. And my second son was 3 months old when I'd been missing for about 5 days. And I was sitting in a pub one morning, Sunday morning, and I was sitting there on my own because I'd knocked at the back door to get let in, and it was early, and I was drinking a pint of Heineken. I was just looking through the window, and the sun was shining in, and I just had this light bulb moment. Then it was the 13th of December 2009, and I just said, what are you doing? Like it was the most sobering moment ever. And I left the point where it was, and I just walked out the door. I rang Yvonne and I said, look, I surrender, I give up, because she'd been looking for me everywhere. I went home, and that was the 13th of December. And on the 15th of December, I joined the gym, and the rest then, and kind of went on from there then,
And so was that the last time was that when you officially stopped drinking?
It was when I officially stopped going missing for weeks on end.
Yeah.
I swapped the addiction or the obsession with fitness because I became obsessed. Now I was going in there at like 58 kilos, like I was super, super scrawny. And I specifically went to this place because I actually wanted to go out there and play rugby. But when I went there on the Tuesday, they were playing rugby, but it was the senior team. And they said, look, why don't you come back on a Friday, the second and the third team train, then you can train with them. And I was there. I was determined I needed to do something. And the gym was leased out to another individual, and I went in there, and the guy that owned the gym, or leased the gym, is now one of my closest friends, and he steered me in the right direction. And he'd done bodybuilding in the UK previously, and we started competing and all the rest of it. But as regards drinking, I was so obsessed with fitness that it didn't really bother me. But at Christmas parties and stuff, if they said, "Oh, we're going out for a drink at Christmas," or maybe it was someone's birthday or whatever like that, then I would go out and I would have a drink, but I then have to go looking for Coke then as well. And
that kind of all or nothing.
Yeah, and I could see this pattern just emerging, but I had it at bay. But it was 2016 when I said, "Hang on a second, like it's only once or twice a year, but you can't be doing this, like."
Yeah.
So I literally haven't touched anything since.
Wow.
It was the centenary. It was the 100th year.
Yeah. The 100th year. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that was it. That was the last night out. I had 4 drinks that night and 2 grams of Coke, and that was my last ever time out. And with that, then I started to take things. Yeah, I started taking seriously because, like, at that point, my eldest son was 6, and he was becoming very impressionable. Now, don't get me wrong, I like, he wouldn't have seen me drinking prior to that anyway, because I said it was only going out, every once in a blue moon. But still, at the same time, I knew that if I was going to be the man that I wanted to be for him and the role model that I wanted to be for him, I had to cut everything out, and I couldn't be hypocritical in any of what I was saying, because I've such a strong message from my past that I wanted to teach it to my children. So the only way to do that was to come from a place of abstinence and go, no, like, yeah, I'm saying this because I've done it and I've given it up and I've moved on. But they know everything, and I've told them the absolute truth. And I've always said, look, you can ask me any single thing you want, but just be careful, because you may get hurt by the truth. And I fully believe that door or that window of, you can ask me what you want, like, no problem. And I'll either tell you the truth, or if it's advice, I will always give a for and against, and we'll formulate what they think is the best idea based on the equation that's there. And it's that kind of has served me well so far.
What what void did drinking or drugs fill for you at the time, Alastair? Was it masking an insecurity? Was it just avoiding reality?
I guess
What was it that it gave you?
it gave me massive confidence anyway, for sure.
Yeah,
And I didn't realize how messed up mentally I was until I became sober. And I think so many people get lost in, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. You kind of need to ask yourself why you can't wait for the weekend, because like, if you can't wait for the weekend, do you really enjoy being hedonistic that much? Or are you can't deal with what's going on between your two ears, but you know that you won't think about it at the weekend because you'll be non-compass mentis, you'll be somewhere else, and you'll have a couple of days break from the demons. And I didn't know this, and I guess as time has unfolded and the more literature I consume and the more work I do on myself, that I figure out that potentially all the trauma from having problems in primary school to right the way through to all my disruptive behavior in secondary school, and a couple of bits of it, like my home life. My mother was amazing. I mean, she did an amazing job with me, and it's absolutely fantastic job. She fulfilled her role 100%. But I didn't get to spend a massive amount of time with my dad. I guess he's just of an older kind of generation of old school Irish dads just weren't really emotionally connected to their kids,
yeah,
and I definitely think that is a key area. Every man needs a hero, right? And I think it's important to have a man in your life that you look up to, and that can guide you and all the rest of it. And I think that bit of discipline was probably missing, So, but look, it's he did a better job than his dad did with him.
gotcha. Yeah.
You know.
I can definitely relate to that dangerous cycle, Alastair, of just living for the weekend, wishing your life away Monday through Friday, counting down the days until you can escape reality for whatever, the 24, 48 hours of the weekend, the Sunday evening, this Monday fear, back to
Mm.
work on Monday, dreading getting up. And I feel a lot of people potentially even listening to this are in the same or similar cycle, Alistair, where they don't really have any purpose and they're not really working towards anything. And as a result, it's just escapism through alcohol, through drugs, through a combination of both. For anyone of our listeners out there who might be stuck in that cycle, I mean, what advice would you offer him or her to potentially segue out of it?
Well, what I would say is you should really audit yourself on every capacity there is, and look at yourself and put yourself as a third person. And if you were looking down on that person saying, you see that avatar over there? Okay, I want you to look at that person and tell me, if you wanted the absolute ultimate best for that individual in this world, what would that look like? And is there a direct correlation with the way they're living their life right now? And when you do that and you just remove yourself from just the blinkers ahead and approach the habitual lifestyle that we have, and you third person yourself and go, what would you want for that person there? This is their circumstances. This is the job they're in. This is the relationship they're in or not. This is their habits around drinking, drugs, or maybe not looking after themselves, health and fitness, all of that. What would you change if your sole job was making that person the best version of themselves? And I think auditing that third person, but that third person is actually writing that down versus okay, now how does that directly correlate with where I am in my own life right now? You'd be surprised how much you could change. Now, I'm not saying flick a switch and change everything overnight, because we know that doesn't work. But what I am saying is, if we make incremental changes to our lifestyles just on a weekly basis, a daily basis, whatever, if you're better next week than you were this week at something, and you're practicing something, right? Whether it be, I'm going to increase my step count, I'm going to increase my hydration, right? But you know that you've so much work to do. Don't worry about it. Don't think about all the work you have to do. Think about the one things, break it apart, pull one thing in and go, I'm going to attend to this week. And I'm going to slowly build a habit around that. Okay, well, next week, what am I going to do with that? Well, okay, well, I know I need to make more time for myself. I know I need to start saying no to people, or I need to cut negative people out of my life, or I need to at least audit who's adding value, who's just existing
Who's
in my
a
life.
energy vampire, exactly.
Energy
Yeah.
vampires as
Yeah.
well. Look at all these people. Do that. Okay, you've got that done. And before long, you won't be long working through the and achieving the road to making yourself a better person. You're never going to get there, by the way. It's a constant road of self-improvement. They all be happy when. The win never happens because it always gets moved. You know, I've worked with thousands at this point, thousands of people. Oh, I'd be happy when I lose this. I'd be happy when that. And then we lose it, help them lose it, and they get there. Yeah, but you know,
They feel the
just
exact
see
same
this
way.
bit here,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and like we're all that way. That's human nature, right?
Yeah,
It's like
100%.
when people get richer, yeah, it's the millionaires want to become billionaires. And you know, so the comma moves, the decimal point moves, everything moves. Okay, but it's about the journey. The end is coming. That the one thing is guaranteed. We're all going to die. So the end is guaranteed anyway, right? But you have to enjoy the journey.
That's who you become a lot. I was actually literally just talking about this in a client coaching call I had this week, Alastair, and I
Mm.
heard a great analogy and I used it with them that imagine two people were climbing Crow Patrick and Reek Sunday. And one person, they brought their own food, they brought all of the bits together, and they had to stop for some breaks along the way. The legs started getting heavy, the breathing was getting to them, they found it quite challenging. Somebody else, they got a helicopter right from the bottom straight up to the top. Now, the view from the summit, it's the exact same for both, but the journey and how they feel in getting there is completely different. And it's the
Mm.
exact same as you said with your health, with your fitness. If you're currently not happy with where you're at right now, but you think you'll be happy when you fit into
Mm.
that dress, you fit into that shirt, you reach your goal weight, you're gonna feel the exact same way then as you currently do now. So embracing that journey, Alistair, I absolutely
Mm.
love that analogy. And seeing as we kind of touched on the alcohol, we touched on the drugs, as you said, you almost traded one obsession for another. So you joined the gym. I mean, 2 days later, after giving up the alcohol back in 2009, what first of all made you want to join the gym? Why was it the gym? Why was it not something else? And then let's just talk about your journey along the way.
So it was knowing I needed something so severe, right? So strong that was going to excite me, number one. And loads of people say, oh, yeah, I should really stop drinking. Or, oh, yeah, I should really do this. I should really give up the cigarettes, all this, right? So
You should.
I smoked from the age of 12, right, until I was 28, which was 2009. So on the 28th of July, 2009, 28th of June, 2009, I gave up the cigarettes and I gave up the drink. Or the going missing, we'll say, and the big sessions in 2009 as well. It was a big pivotal point for me. I guess as well, there's another realization that the guys, and maybe the girls will be interested in this as well. Guys tend to mature a lot later than girls, and your prefrontal cortex in your brain isn't fully formed till you're 25 anyway. So you can't really rationalize decision making properly till you're over the age of 25 anyway, right? But guys, on paper, with every study that's out there, are slower to mature than females, and females mature mentally a lot earlier because of childbirth, right? And to be a mom and the responsibilities to go with that. Okay, so that's proven. So as I was getting closer to 30, obviously these realizations started happening. So it's about getting to a point in your mind where you know you need to change. I knew I needed to change, but I also knew I needed something that was going to drive me and pull me. So, like I said, it was about rugby, and I was watching. I'd become obsessed with rugby, and I read Ronan O'Gara's book, And it was probably the first book I ever read, believe it or not, and his first autobiography. And I said, right, that's it. I'm going to become a rugby player, and that's it. You know, Roger's my hero, and all the rest of it. And off I went because I wanted to play rugby. Because what, if we look at that psychologically, right, and let's take that apart, why? I needed a hero. I needed somebody to look up to. And because I had no one, right? So then I went to the rugby club, and that was fine. And next thing I went to the gym, and then Rog, believe it or not, he's the guy that owned the gym, was called Rog as well, right? So Rog that owned the gym then was like, oh, I want to put on size, and I want to be big like him, and I want to compete with him and all that. So he became my guiding light. And like I say, the addictive personality came then from the positive feedback that came from, I was watching myself grow. I was stick thin, right? Watching myself grow, and I started to respond pretty quickly, started to get my food right. Then people start noticing it and saying, oh, this, that, and the other, and you start to feel better anyway. Number one, it's good. You're bettering yourself, and you're starting to turn a corner. But it was really that inner drive of needing something that lit me up inside and gave me excitement, it gave me a bit of hope, and gave me like a mentor, and I think as men, especially nowadays, things were very different back then, right? But especially nowadays, like, men are ostracized for nearly everything, right? And I think as men, we need to recognize that men need strong men to look up to, and that's not toxic by saying that.
It's almost seen as a sign of weakness, when in reality it's a sign of strength. I can just when you said there you started seeing the changes in the gym, I will even never forget my own. I feel like we have a similar enough backstory just entering into the gym, maybe the drug bit aside, but I was scrawny, I was skinny, it came out of insecurity above all else. Alastair, it was just increased my confidence, didn't really like the way I looked in the mirror, wasn't that confident or outgoing as a person. But I remember my first gym session, and whether this is true or not, the memory I have in my mind is after the session, I saw a vein in my right bicep for the very first time in my life. And as you said, progress is addictive. And that was like, God, I've never seen myself like this before. And if something is working, why would you not do it? Why would you stop doing it if you like the way it makes you feel? I'm curious then, how did this lead to you? Can you just share your journey now about getting into bodybuilding, competing, and not just competing, but being a pro fitness model and a 5-time world champion? You took it to a new level.
So again, my addictive personality took over. So like, if I go at something, I need to go all in, right?
Yeah.
And so I joined the gym in 2009, and in 2011 I did my first show.
Wow, 2 years.
2 years, and I was a good responder. I was 100% natural on my first show, and the guy that owned the gym wanted to do a show as well. And we did it together. He said, look, I've done shows in the UK before, I'd love to compete again. I said, well, I'll compete as well. I said, but I don't think I'm big enough. He goes, it doesn't matter. Just look, you're being good enough shape to do your first show.
Yeah.
So off we went anyway, and I did the first timer category in the RABBF, and there was like 15 of us on the stage, and I think they placed up to 8. Not in an awards thing, but you could check the standings of it, and I placed 7th. But there was guys there that were monsters out there. How was it their first time? But they've been training 20 years.
You the 2 years behind you.
But sure, I was so naive to the drug culture, and I was so naive, to the performance enhancing drug culture, that I was just there. Oh, Jesus. Right. Okay. I have loads of work to do here. So back to the drawing board, went back, put another really good year in the gym, went back, did the RABBF again, and I placed 3rd in the under 80 kilo category. And I said, right, okay, that's me. The bodybuilding in Ireland didn't really interest me anymore after that show. And I just continued on with my own training, and I was growing, and everything was great and fine. I was just, getting on with it. Still, still loving the gym, still loving the training. And in the end of 2015, a friend of mine in the UK said to me, have you ever thought about competing again? And I said, I'm not interested in going on the bodybuilding route and all that, because I didn't want to be bodybuilder, massive bodybuilder, that kind of way, and he said, why don't you try fitness modeling? And I said, what's the story with that? Because I didn't know anything about it. And he was telling me, and he said, look, I'll coach you and we'll do it. And look, we'll see how long it takes. Because I'd done a photo shoot, you see, and he'd seen the pictures of it, and he was there going, if you let me coach you, I can get you in like, well done, but I can get you in better shape, So I said, right, okay, cool. So we did that and put in probably a year of, all different strategies, different things had changed, things had moved on from the chicken and broccoli then, and there was lots of nuances that had come into the scene at that stage. People were trying various different things,
supplements,
whatever.
And
just everything. Yeah. So I went and I did my first amateur fitness modeling show, and that was with Miami Pro in the UK, and I came second in that, and first and second qualified for pro cards in that federation. But I didn't compete with that federation again. But I was happy. I was happy with it, and I enjoyed it and all of that. And then I was looking at different federations to compete with, and I had a look at Pure Elite, and I said, right, look, I'll try one of these Pure Elite shows. So I did a Pure Elite show later on that year, and I went in and I did fitness model and I did muscle model as well, because I didn't really know. I was kind of in the middle of
just what's the difference between fitness modeling and bodybuilding, Alastair?
So fitness modeling is different posing, completely different posing. So fitness modeling would be like what you'd see on the cover of Men's Health, as opposed to 100+ kilo guys,
So different grading criteria.
Totally different, yeah. And
different
within the Fitness Modeling Federation, you've got you'd have different classes within that then. So you'd have, for guys, you'd have fitness model and muscle model. So a fitness model would be somebody who would be, like I say, athletic, lean, muscle bound to a degree, but not overly muscular. And a muscle model would be a little bit more muscular, that would be more bodybuilder looking, but not massive, than a fitness model. So there was those two distinctions. You then have obviously physique competitor, which is a physique competitor. The board shorts. And
board shorts, yeah.
Yeah, and the same style of posing with that. But fitness model posing was where you have your mandatory poses in bodybuilding, and it's all very stiff and very aggressive. The fitness modeling posing was much more of a kind of there was a bit more fluidity to the posing and so on, like that. They had a thing then, was in another category, was called international model, and that was 2 rounds, and 1 round would be an underwear round, where you'd model maybe like whatever brand underwear, that again all related to, would you see that physique and that individual, could that person be seen modeling those on a magazine? The other round of it then was a dress wear round, where you would see somebody in something fashionable, so on and so forth, 3-piece suit or not, or whatever. So those kind of things. So
you placed first and you placed second.
I placed second in the first show I did, but when I went to Pure Elite, I did 2 categories, and I placed first in the muscle model one, and I placed second in the fitness model one, which gave me then a pro card in that. So this was an amateur show. Now, an amateur show in any of these federations would normally suggest that it's either somebody doing it for their first time, somebody using it as an end goal, just to go, I'm going to compete once and I'm fine, I'm happy after that. So you had quite a varied range of people that had maybe competed a couple of times before, never got a pro card and wanted to keep going back and to try and go into the pro side of things. So the physiques there was quite a variation that you would see on the stage. In the pro show, you either had to have won your class, or if it was a big class, you would have to have come second to gain a pro card to be able to compete with that. So what that meant was that if there was 10 people in the pro class, then the variation between the 10 of them was very little. And it would really be down to the fine lines of you are graded on your tan, you're graded on your stage presence, your posing, your smiling, your everything. There was so much to it. And so that was competing as a pro. And that's where I won the five world titles, and was with Purely doing that. So I won muscle model, fitness model, international model, and that was in 1 year, and I went in and I defended those 3 titles the following year, which was 2019, and I didn't retain the fitness model one, but I won the muscle model one because I was just that bit bigger, and I retained the international model one then as well. And I was going taking time out then. That was the end of 2019, and I was going taking 2020 as a bit of a deload, just enjoying my training, and then I was going to go to America to compete with WBFF, and I wanted to go to the Venice Beach one, but then 2020 came and sure everything changed. Yeah.
And before we transition into lockdown and what happened next, Alastair, what did fitness modeling and embracing on that journey, what did you learn about yourself of just taking things to an extreme level?
I knew that I was extremely disciplined. I knew that, like, if I wanted something, that I would just stop at nothing to get it. And I don't mean that in a malevolent way. I mean it in the way that, like, once I had my heart set on something, I would work super, super hard to get there. And I was happy about discovering that quality. I had, I guess, as well, getting up on a stage in front of Christ knows how many people, 1,000 people in one of the places. Getting rid of those nerves really massively helped me. In and around that time as well, I came out more online as well and started talking more online, and I became very vocal, which helps me speak in one-to-one conversations, or it helps me speak in front of people and multiple people and so on. And so that really, really helped as well.
Yeah.
And it gave me confidence. It gave me purpose. And what it did was, when the day of competing, as well, that when everyone's there and they're all there for the same thing, the level of camaraderie I was blown away by it, and I really, really liked that. But one thing, and I would say this, and this is an important thing for you and anyone that does compete, or in any discipline, doesn't have to be bodybuilding or fitness modeling or whatever. The last show in 2019, there was something different that day, and it wasn't as exciting for me as the rest of them were. And it was, again, I had one of those sobering moments where I was looking around and going, there's something not right. What's wrong? There was nothing wrong with the people. Everything was still exactly the same. And I was I was trying to analyze what was it? And the simplest way of putting it is, for me, the magic was gone.
Yeah. And because you lost the magic, Alastair, maybe just talk the listeners through, what would a day in the life of a pro fitness model have looked like for you back in the day?
I would get up at 5. I would have gone downstairs and done faster cardio, and then I would have made my first meal, and I would done bits and pieces, whatever, and then trained all within the morning, we'll say again, eating again, made sure it was coming in close to competing. When you're coming in close to it, I was doing like upwards of 30,000 steps a day, and so you have to get that in. And then I was doing another weight session again in the evening, and depending upon where we were at, maybe some more cardio, or trying to get the step count up, or whatever like that. But that would be the run in on it, and trying to juggle a couple of businesses and the children and all my commitments with that. It's not easy, because it's a full-time job when you're going at it like that, and it's also very
sure level.
Yeah, it's also a very, 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 very selfish sport.
Oh, that is something that I discovered.
Yeah.
It is so, like, you're just always in your own head.
Yeah.
You're always thinking about yourself, your next meal, your next workout, your next walk, your next cardio session. It does become very, very selfish. And to some degree isolating. I'm not sure if you found the same, but
yeah, it's 100% isolation, because like if you're going to be the best at anything, whether it's competing, like, you have to be in the 1%, and if you're in the 1%, it's like David Goggins says, you have to be uncommon amongst uncommon people.
Amen
and
with that.
It from the outside, people looking in, it's it's hugely selfish. It's hugely narcissistic to a degree. However, it massively helped me. It served a great purpose for me. I have some great memories from it. My kids have great memories from it. My eldest son used to come to all the shows with me, and he would help with the posing and, like, be watching everything. And then my youngest son actually came out. There was a routine that I did on one of the shows that I did, and my youngest son came out and did the routine with me. Wow. It was a kind of double act to a piece of music or whatever. So we have some very special memories from that, and I'm very, very grateful for that part of my life. And one thing I would say to anyone is to have an opinion on something, you have to have done it. And but it
gives you a new perspective. Yeah, absolutely.
It gives you a new perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and what I would say there is, even I would have had, like, people say, are bodybuilders, are they really athletes? I mean, in my opinion, of course they're athletes, just like, and it's a different form of athleticism, but they're still practicing the art of doing something to an extreme level. And what it really taught me is, like, just massive respect for anyone who does that year in, year out. It's a full-time feckin' job. Prepping your meals, getting your cardio in, getting your posing in, your gym sessions in. There's so much that goes into it. There is so much that goes into it. So real massive respect to anyone who does that. But tell me then, Alastair, so, 5-time world champion, then the lockdown hits, pandemic hits, gyms are closed.
Yeah,
in what way did that impact you?
It was really, really weird, because I just didn't know what to do with myself, because I could have gone online and potentially done really well. But I like being physical, and I like being vocal, and I like the interaction with people in real life as well, right?
Yeah.
So I needed to do something. Now, my background, when I was, working with my dad and all that, and all through my 20s, was the motor trade. So I decided, you know what? I've done so many years of just going full tilt fitness. I said, and now we're closed. I think it was after the first month of lockdown, I was there going to myself, well, why don't I use this time now to actually just, do something, or, that's non-fitness related, because, like, the gym's going to be open again shortly and all this. So one of the gyms that I have, the one I have here in Clonakilty, they're both warehouse style gyms, so they have a big roller door and all that. So I moved all the gym gear out of where the roller door was, and I pulled the car in, and I restored the car, put an engine into it, painted it, and then we YouTubed it and all that, and that took off really well. And throughout that entire lockdown process, which was 11 and a half months, we were closed in total between all the different lockdowns combined together. It was, I had worked on that car, but I'd actually worked on 44 other people's cars in that time. So it was a really bizarre time, because that's what my default was. I kind of got lost in working on cars, which brought me happiness, I guess, and it wound the clock back a bit to not happier times, but I was able to pull some
past
happiness from it.
memories.
Yeah.
And how did lockdown then impact your training?
Training, it was so difficult, because I was just there, well, what's the point? And I was doing little bits and pieces, and it was, I just couldn't, like, there was no, obviously the gym being closed, there was no real vibe in it. And I know, look, there was many gyms operating behind closed doors, but like, we're down here in West Cork, and I mean, it's we couldn't do that. We just couldn't take the chance, and nor did I want to take the chance either, because what was it going to be worth, So my training suffered because my addictive personality took over, and I was working 15, 16-hour days on these cars, and it was just bang, 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 and all I could think about was cars. And I then started to fall out of love with training and so on. So I started going for walks. I started going outdoors. And I said, you know what? I started thinking about how our ancestors would have lived years ago, what they would have done, how did they keep themselves in great physical shape to, be the best possible people to survive, to be, and we're the end of the bloodline. And then I was looking at that, and I was just thinking about it, and I said, what if I started to talk to people about primal living? And I said, what if I was to do something like that, which would be go outdoors, get into the water, and get barefoot, do a bit, grounding, get out in nature, just like, running around the place, and just adopting the lifestyle of that, because we could at the time, because it was not, it was like we were in a dream anyway, because everything was different. So that's how I kind of got back into getting myself physically in a better place, at least anyway, and mentally too, massively helped.
So can you talk it through then, Alastair, what exactly is primal living?
Well, if you take away everything modern, and you take yourself back 100 years ago, and wherever you are in the world right now, and adopt the mindset and the availability of what you 100 years ago would have had, what would that look like? So I live near the coast, so we would have had a lot of fish, because you'd have fished, or you'd have grown your own vegetables, and you would have probably eating your own meat. No, I wasn't going up slaughtering my neighbors' animals or anything like that, but you get my point. So I was trying to eat like it would have been back then, just to see what that would have been like, what it would have been like to go out and just go roaming around the fields, and go climbing hills and mountains and stuff like that, potentially on the lookout for food, and just playing around with all of that kind of lifestyle. And it's it's cool in its own right. I mean, I didn't live at 100% of in total Bear Grylls or Ed Stafford kind of way, but it was most certainly better than lifting weights in a gym with no lights on.
Tell me this, Alastair. How did making that transition from falling out of love with the gym to going down the more primal living route, how did your physique change over time? Or did it? Or did it change?
It didn't really, it didn't really. If anything, I suppose I probably, because I don't train to the intensity that I used to train, and I don't eat the amount I used to eat, and I'm not as strict as I used to be on what I eat and timings and calories and so on. I I'm not as big as I used to be in muscular sense, but still at the same time,
Man, you're looking pretty jacked now.
it's just
So
it's
you hold on
angles.
to it, bro.
It's angles. But yeah, so it didn't really massively affect me physically, right? But that's just genetic. That's just my genetical, predisposition. But it definitely massively impacted me mentally. Like even if you don't have to go running around fields and climbing mountains, right? But getting in cold water and going barefoot, as in and practicing grounding and meditation and mindfulness and all of that, I can't tell you the level of insight you get into yourself when you start opening those doors.
Okay, and just kind of as we wrap things up, Alastair, one thing I heard you speak about on a previous podcast, and it's definitely something that I currently feel challenged with, and I 100% know a lot of my listeners are feeling the same way. What advice would you give to someone who attaches a lot of their identity to how they look?
It's a good question. If there was nobody else on the planet right now, would you be bothered about how you look? The answer to that is probably not. You probably wouldn't be bothered. Okay. Well, then if you are bothered by that identity, who are the people that it bothers you the most about the way you look and why you want to change? And if you I think if you keep asking why to that, you'll eventually get back to the answer. It could be, so let's give some examples. It could be, I want to lose 2 to 3 dress sizes because somebody called me fat, and I don't want to identify as fat anymore. And you probably put on a few pounds anyway, and that's fine, right? But are you only getting there to impress people you don't even like anyway? We in life go through life buying assets, not even assets, buying material objects to impress people we don't even like. And we try to attain a physique for ourselves that we don't enjoy, and we're doing it for the perception of somebody else to look at us. Some of my deepest and darkest, baddest days are when I was in my best physical visual condition, when I was competing. I was fucking miserable to the core, but I looked unreal, and that's no way to live. So my advice to anybody is identify why it's upsetting you. Identify, is it coming from within? Is it coming from childhood? Is it from Mary down the road who said something horrible to you 4 years ago? And reverse engineer it back from there. And just remember, no one cares.
Yeah.
Like, there's none of us getting out of this alive, right? The day is going to go by anyway. The sun is going to rise tomorrow anyway. And it's really up to you how you make the most out of each day. And if you're going to perpetually live in a state of fear of how you look to please someone you don't even like, you're living an extremely, extremely miserable existence. And I would urge anyone, that boils back down to auditing. And I would audit yourself, as I said, go back to the auditing bit and audit yourself third person. And what would you want for that person to make them the best possible version of themselves they could be? And you know what happens from that? It's normally the outward visual representation of ourselves is normally how we're feeling inside, right? And if someone is massively overweight, it's probably because they've given up on themselves inside, because there's trauma, or they're hurt, or there's something. There's always a reason. If somebody's in great physical shape, I mean, like super lean bodybuilder type, not bodybuilder, but like super, super lean, and they have to go to the gym all the time, there's something wrong inside, right? Like, if somebody, like the happiest times I've been is when I wasn't worried if I woke up and my six pack wasn't as deep as it was the day before. So for anyone listening to this, stop worrying about the scales. Stop worrying about numbers or measurements or anything like that. There's a whole lot of living to be done out there, and you need to start waking up and drop the people around you that are making you tear yourself to pieces.
Wow, that was really powerful, man. Yeah, even looking back now, so I'm a few weeks post stepping up in stage, and naturally enough, my body is primed to put on more body fat than to than to hold it off. But you're looking back at some photos and you're like, God, yeah, you look super lean. But then I remember leading up to the show, like 3 nights up to it, my sleep was terrible. Walking up to the local store, going for a walk, walking up the stairs at night. It felt like I was running a freaking marathon. My legs were like tree trunks, they were that heavy.
Yeah, but
So
even you're cognitively, you're fucked as well. Like,
oh,
yeah.
honestly, like outside of the first 90 minutes of the morning, my productivity just went down. Everything went down. So you're kind of looking at the image, but then you're forgetting about the feeling and how you actually felt along the way. And it's part of the process too, as you said, like to get that lean, you gotta go to that dark place and you gotta push yourself. But it's just not attaching everything to how you look and maybe focus on what you can do, how you perform, how you relate to other people, how you're contributing, how you're helping other people, where you're showing up in other areas of your life. Because as you said, it's something I heard Tony Robbins say as well. Your body's going to change over the years, and you're not going to look like how you did in your 20s when you're in your 30s or your 40s. So you just can't be too attached to that because it's always going to be constantly evolving. And that's where there's other parts of your character, your personality would always come in. So that's definitely something that I myself am even just coming to terms with, because this is new territory for me. But the more people who say it, the likes of yourself, the likes of Brian Kane, who I'm working with as well, it's just reassuring that, there's people out there to help you regardless of how you're feeling. And it's always good to reach out.
Yeah.
Alastair, man, this has been an awesome chat. I really, really appreciate you coming on. Before we do our final fire, I like to finish with 5 rapid fire Q&A questions.
Oh, cool.
Is
Go for
there
it, yeah.
is there is there something that you're currently looking forward to at the moment, Alastair, that you're working on?
I had a very unfortunate thing happen recently, about 3 weeks ago, where I was in the UK and a van, a trailer, and a classic car that myself and my son had bought for us to do up to recreate something that I had 20 years ago, a particular car that I had 20 years ago. We bought this thing and it got robbed. Everything, the whole lot was robbed outside the hotel. And that is, it was unfortunate. And obviously there's a bit of emotional side of things as well, attached to it, because it was something that we'd spoken about with years to do and all the rest of it. So we are trying to build a project at the moment to create to create money to recuperate the loss on that, to then go forward and get one of these cars again. So that's what I'm looking forward to at the moment, and that's going to consume so that project. And also both my sons are both very different. I'm going to Belfast next weekend. My eldest son plays for Munster under 18s, and
Brilliant.
playing Ulster in the first interprovincial game of the season. And my youngest son is we've got some stuff planned with him as well. So they're what I'm looking forward to at the minute anyway.
Well, first of all, look, I'm sorry to hear about the car. I mean, that is just there's people out there now, just
Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
yeah.
Well, look, karma, it'll always come back. It'll always come back. I'm a big believer in what you put in, you get back, you get out from the universe. Also, we'll finish with a rapid fire Q&A, our final 5. The first one being, what's one new habit that you've implemented in the past year?
Getting up at 4:44 a.m.
4:44.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it.
Mhm.
Okay. When you hear the word successful, who is the first person that comes to mind?
Jordan Peterson.
Love Peterson. Unreal.
Mm.
Unreal. If you could go back to when you first started Alastair,
Mm.
what's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
Don't be so hard on yourself and stop hanging on to the guilt of the
Yeah.
person you used to be and let go.
What do you feel is the most underrated gym exercise that you feel most people should do more of?
Opening the front door.
And being
Honestly,
welcoming. I love it. Yeah.
honestly, just being and what to expand on that, be consistent. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you do when you're in there. Build the habit of going there, get it done. There's no
I
one
love
magic
it.
exercise, only the
Yeah.
front door. Yeah.
Brilliant. I've never heard somebody say that. Final question, Alastair. What's one question that you wish people asked you more of?
Are you happy? Because I could expand on it then, and it would be it would be a meditation then for me to meditate on and at least expand more on it. Hi, how are you? How's it going? You know, everything all right? Cool. Yeah, no, that doesn't cut it. Listen, are you happy? Well, define happy. Well, what's happy? And that there's 3 hours of meditation to go down to there when you start breaking that apart. Because that holds me accountable then, you know.
Being aware of your thoughts.
Yeah.
Alastair, man, this has been amazing.
I would also couple that with, have you told the truth today? If there's one piece of advice, right? This is the biggest piece of advice I could give, and we'll leave it on this now, right? Is the biggest thing that set me free is
Yeah.
honesty. Putting my hand up and going, I was an absolute degenerate. I ruined my marriage. I ruined everything I came into contact with. And I'm quite happy to own it. And I continue to own it and tell the truth, because life is hard. And there's two ways of living life. You can either live life the hard way or the harder way. The hard way is dealing with things up front, and the harder way is a lot tougher because you're pushing it back into the future. And if something needs dealing with, deal with it today. Don't leave it till tomorrow, because it gets worse.
Alastair Harte, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem, Adrian.
It's been an absolute pleasure chatting, and above all else, I just really appreciate, as you alluded to there in the last question, just your honesty. You've been so upright and honest about everything, about the drugs in the past, the fitness, COVID, the lockdown, your own personal challenges. Having heard you speak, for anyone who hasn't checked it out on Brian Kane's podcast, on his own podcast, your episodes, they always bring something different. And just thank you so much. I really do appreciate you coming on. I love your content. I love what you're doing. I love following your journey. I love following your story. And I really do mean that.
Thanks,
So
Adrian.
thanks so much for
Appreciate
your
it.
time,
Thank you.
Alastair. And for
Yeah.
anyone who would like to learn a bit more about you, about what you offer, or if anyone needs some support or guidance, Alastair, where's the best place to send them?
Absolutely. So my most active platform is probably Instagram at Alastair_Harte. You can put it in the show notes if they
Yeah,
if they
I'll
want to
put
have a
that
look
in the
there.
show notes for sure.
Alastair Harte on YouTube, lots of different things on there. Alastair Harte on Facebook, and bodyimage.ie are the gyms. But yeah, at Alastair_Harte on Instagram. And I mean that if anyone, just drop me a DM. If someone's listened to this and they go, do you know what, I it might be a stupid question, but I'd love his opinion on this. Drop me a message, no problem. No problem.
Awesome. Alastair, thanks again for your time. I really enjoyed this chat.
Thanks, Adrian.